Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight. We have a very special evening at our virtual social for November. My name is Michael Pullman. I'm the Upper Canada Region UCR President of PCA. So I'm just going to go over a few things first, and then I'm going to turn it over to our guests. Just a couple of outstanding items I want to talk about. But I want to definitely thank Haggerty, Corey Finkelstein, and Rob Stas, who's the editor-in-chief of Panorama, which is PCA's national magazine, for being here this evening. We look forward to having a virtual social with you guys and learning the state of the classic market and where Porsche prices are going, and looking forward to a tour. So just before I start, obviously, this has been an unprecedented year for the club and for everybody in North America, obviously, and around the world. So we've been trying to do as much as we can with our members, and we've had some good feedback on our socials and virtual socials. We've had some driving tours, and we've had some other events. But I really want to thank our track team, Dave Osborne, and the entire track team for keeping driver education alive for at least the solo students. We know it's been a tough year, and we're hoping that come spring we can get the rest of the greens and the yellows out. So Dave and the entire team, thank you very much from the board of directors and the entire club. You did a great job this year, and thanks for keeping that going. I also want to thank Mario Morello, Autocross. Mario and his team put on quite a few events this summer, and it got some of those some of the green and yellow members out, at least getting out in their car and having some fun. So thank you, Mario, and the entire team. I want to thank Stefan Walter, our VP, as well, for hosting a number of driving tours along with his various co-hosts. We did have some driving tours this year, so we were able to get out and do that and keep socially distanced. So thank you very much for that. Usually at this time of year, we have our annual banquet. Obviously that wasn't happening this year, but those of you celebrating membership milestones this year, you will receive a certificate in the mail if you haven't received it already. I want to thank Laurel Ward, Mark Herring, and John Adam for preparing those and sending those out. That's a big task. I know I was involved in the past with that, and thank you for getting that out to everybody. Earlier this evening, we had our elections night, our business meeting. So the new board has been voted upon, so I would like to share that with you now. This will be my last virtual social as club president. I'll be moving into the past president position starting December 1st. I would like to congratulate Stefan Walter as our new president, Jackie Metcalf as our vice president, our treasurer, Kevin Choquette, Jill Clements, who you know from Driven to Smile, is coming back to the board as secretary. Roger Stopford continues on as director, Kai Wankum as director, Chris Hebert, our Zoom guru this evening, has joined the board, so welcome, Chris. Larry Fennell, who will be our 2021 driving tour chair, is now a director on the board, so welcome. And I would like to especially thank Kathleen Wong. Kathleen has been on the board for quite a few years, and she'll be stepping down, but she will still be working with us on various things, including internal audit, membership retention, and she'll be in charge of the 21 banquet chair. So thank you very much, Kathleen. I want to thank Terry Kassan, who is stepping off the board this year. Terry has been on the board for 3 years. He was the club race co-chair. He will continue on in 21 as our club race co-chair at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Mosport. And David Walker, thank you for being on the board. And David is our province editor and doing a fantastic job. He will continue being province editor for a long time, I hope. And he's also our Porsche Plus coordinator. So thank you all. And I look forward to working with the new board come December 1st. So normally in our banquet dinner, we give out awards for various type of awards that we've kind of come up with every year. This year, again, we have an Enthusiast of the Year award. This is an award given to that individual, you know, whether they've been in the club for the past year or they've been in the club for 20 years. It's somebody who really steps forward and participates in the club and really volunteers in many ways. And as you know, we're a not-for-profit club. We're fueled by volunteers. So volunteers is what makes this club really work. And you know, we've had fantastic volunteers over the years. But this year, there really was one outstanding person that we voted on, and I'm really delighted to have gotten to know this person. He joined in late 2017 when he bought a 911. Shortly after that, he joined UCR. In late 2019, he joined the Province editorial team and launched Province Digital in early 2020. And recently he launched UCR TV. So if you know who I'm talking about, congratulations, Christopher Herbert. Chris, thank you. Excellent contributions to the club. Here's your award on the screen, if you can see it.
I can.
For the Enthusiast of the Year 2020. Thank you very much, Chris.
Congratulations, Chris.
Quiet.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's been a real honor and a pleasure working with all of you.
It's great having you. Thank you, Chris. The next award has never been given out before, not that I know of. It's a bit of an emotional award for me because I've worked with this person a long time. And I went to the board 2 months ago and I said, you know, we need an award for outstanding achievement. And sorry. And it's only going to be given out when it's really, you know, when it's really due, when somebody's really come forward and has done outstanding work. So we've come up with an award, Outstanding Achievement Award, which we will give out when we need to give it out. So it's not going to be every year, but this year it will be going to an outstanding individual who joined UCR in 1998. Right after that, she joined driver's education. In 2008, she received her racing license and started racing her 944 Turbo S at Mosport. In 2013, she really stepped up and started volunteering, and it hasn't stopped. It's incredible, actually. You know, she was in charge of internal audit, membership retention, open house, socials, picnic, banquet chair, club registration, bi-monthly e-blasts, social co-chair. In 2014, she was a UCR Enthusiast of the Year. She joined the board of directors in 2014. She was vice president in 15 and 16. She was president in 17 and 18. She's past president right now until the end of November. I would like to congratulate Kathleen Wong for outstanding achievement. Chris, can you show my screen?
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Michael.
No, I can't, but you can show your screen.
How do I show it? How do I show it?
I think that's, maybe just hold it up close and talk.
Okay. So if you can see this.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
Outstanding Achievement Award. I want to thank Kai Wankum for the artwork. Outstanding Achievement Award presented to Kathleen Wong for outstanding achievement and continuous contributions to the success of Upper Canada region, November 2020. And if you notice, there's a 917 on there because 917 was one of Porsche's winningest ever race cars, outstanding race car. And Kathleen's an outstanding lady, and she's been a great asset to her club. And I loved working with her. We all loved working with you, and we love having you. Basically, Kathleen is the ultimate volunteer. So thank you very much, Kathleen.
Thank you. But I couldn't do my job without every one of you, like including not just the volunteer, but the members. So thank you for all your support for all those years, and hope you can all continue to support our new board in the future. Okay,
Thank you
but thank you very much for all the volunteers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen. So if we have new members this evening, I guess we'll find out later. We're going to give out some membership pins to new members. So please come forward later on and let us know if you're a new member. For those members that are new, basically Upper Canada Region was formed in 1976. We've got approximately 2,700 primary members, 4,000 including family members. We're one of the largest regions in the 145 regions in North America. And as I mentioned, we're a not-for-profit organization fueled by volunteers. So we've got a great club, one of the largest out there. And as I mentioned before, it's driven by volunteers. So please get involved in the club, and you'll get a real sense of satisfaction when you do volunteer. So without further ado, I want to present Corey Finkelstein. Or Finkelstein, Corey, I forget how you pronounce your last name, but Finkelstein.
That's right.
Corey's the manager of private client services, Haggerty Canada. Many of you probably have insurance with Haggerty. I know I do on a number of my cars. And also Rob Stas, who I mentioned, editor-in-chief of Panorama Magazine. We're going to talk about insurance, classic cars, and anything in between. So welcome, Corey. Turn it over to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you very much. Glad to be here. And what I'll do is I'll just share my screen. Hopefully I can get that to work properly. It usually does. And I'll put it into full screen mode. There we go. So tonight I invited Rob to join us to do a little state of the market update. There's lots been happening in the collector car world based on changes with COVID and all that. So it'd be just thought it would be interesting to take a little look at that. And just for those of you who don't know me, I'm sure everyone knows Rob, but for me, I am the manager of private client services for Haggerty Canada. So I joined the company about 3 years ago, new to insurance, the insurance world, but I've been a collector since I was a little kid. I've enjoyed cars, been a collector for 30 years with my 1964 Volkswagen Beetle. And primarily I work in the high net worth space for Haggerty. So I help collectors with vehicle collections valued from 250,000 into the millions, and I help them get the right coverage and enjoy their cars more. And Rob, as you know, probably needs no introduction, so we won't go any further with that. And let's see, you can go to the next slide. So just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about tonight. So we'll do a little overview of the market and what's happening in the auction world. We'll talk about the rising stars, which it says stars, which should say stars, and what's going down a little bit in the market these days. I'll let you know a little bit about our valuation tools that you can use, and a quick little Haggerty versus the regular insurance market talk, and then we didn't actually get an opportunity to get into the Haggerty garage because logistics didn't work out. So I've got a couple slides just to show you and share one of McKeel's most important cars in his collection. McKeel Haggerty is the son of the original owners of Haggerty Insurance, for those of you who don't know. So first off, we'll start with the overview, and I'll let Rob dive into this.
Okay, well, as you can see from the slide, and not surprisingly, the auction market has slowed down in 2020, and it's mainly a function of the fact that since Amelia Island in March, early in the year, all the auctions have shifted to online. So, fewer cars being auctioned. A lot of the big sales early in the calendar were canceled outright, and the auction companies just had to adjust to sort of the new paradigm, which is online auctions. So fewer Porsches being sold, fewer cars altogether, which makes for a year-to-date sales total down by 25%. So nothing unexpected there. It's not so much being driven by values being lower, just fewer cars coming to market via the auction companies. So next slide. And in the next slide, it just basically buttresses, what we were discussing in the earlier slide, the fact that the number of Porsches offered at auction in 2020 is down 27%, but the sell-through rate's higher. It's 74% compared to 2017 through 2019, which was 68%, and that's not insignificant. A 6% difference in sell-through rate is a fairly big deal. So it just shows that there's still demand for good quality Porsches, And, the bottom didn't fall out as a result of the pandemic. I think there's a lot of concern in the beginning of the year. Frankly, this wound up going in a different direction from what I was guessing very early on. There's been robust demand throughout the pandemic. People have been buying cars and enjoying them. So
it seems like people have more time to focus on the cars they want to get and the work they want to do to them now too, right? That could be driving part of the market.
Yeah, no question. Restoration shops are reporting that they have all the business that they can handle right now. So it is surprising given the fact that the GDP numbers, economic numbers, all didn't, all were fairly scary. Unemployment numbers and everything else, but it just simply has not translated into really much in the way of stress in the classic car market.
So let's talk about what's moving up in the market first of all.
Yep.
So we've got a few choices here.
First corner, the 356C Cabriolet. One of the things that's been going on in the Porsche world of late, certainly in the 911 world, is the preference for coupes, for closed cars over Targas and Cabriolets has become really pronounced. And for a while, the real darlings in the 356 world were the coupes, especially late Cs and SC coupes, sunroof coupes, were doing really, really well, almost to the point where they're starting to really fairly seriously close the gap in value between a cabriolet and a coupe. The fact of the matter is, obviously, the coupe is going to be more rigid no matter which car you're looking at, whether it's a 356 or a 911. But most people don't track 356s, and they're really wonderful sunny Sunday cars. And even though a sunroof coupe is a wonderful thing, a fully open car is really kind of that much nicer on a sunny weekend day. So C cabs especially were becoming sort of conspicuously undervalued in relation to coupes, and they've taken a little bit of a bump. So that's really sort of what's going on there. Same thing really can be said for a B Roadster. It's a car that has some of the panache of a convertible D or even an A Speedster, but it's an easier car to live with. It's got roll-up windows and it's got all the refinements that the 356B got. So again, it was a car that was just looking sort of undervalued, and the realization was that this is a very usable, reliable, fun to drive weekend car, much the same way a C cab would be. So they've taken a little bit of a bump of late, and nothing that's terribly drastic, but certainly something that's understandable given the fact that they are very usable cars. The 2011 911 Speedster, well, sort of anything 997 right now is kind of the darling of the water-cooled world at the moment. I think there's sort of a realization that of the generations of water-cooled 911s that are extant right now, it's kind of the Goldilocks car. It's sort of gets a lot of things just right. As the 991 and the 992 grew in size, the 997, when you view it next to a 993, is sort of conspicuously more traditionally 911 sized, and it looks really, really good. I remember being at the 992 introduction in Los Angeles a couple of years ago, and they had every generation of 911 there, and everybody was really enthusiastic about the new 992 and thought it was an absolutely wonderful car. But a lot of eyes started to gaze at the 993 and the 997, which were situated in pretty close proximity to each other. And I think people realized that the size differential wasn't all that great, and the 997 was a very pretty car. And the Speedster is one of the more charismatic 997 variants, and I think it's really sort of natural that this is a car that's got a little bit of momentum behind it right now. Obviously not a common car, but I think that in general, it's really hard to go wrong with any 997 right now, particularly .2 coupes, which are really actually quite hard to find, manual transmission cars. They came out at the beginning of a really sharp recession, so there aren't that many of them around. So, you know, it's really, like I said, it's very hard to go wrong with any 997, you know, 997 GT3s. It right around $100,000 Canadian, 75 or 80 US are also looking like pretty good buys right now, but hard to say anything bad about the 997. Last car on the screen, the Carrera GT probably doesn't need a whole lot of puffery from me. It's an interesting car in that it's probably the last really sort of analog supercar that Porsche would build. It's got sort of that wicked kind of widowmaker reputation behind it. You know, very little in the way of driver's aids. It's got the you know, the Formula One derived V10, and there are only, I think, about 1,237 of them, I think, that were built. 600 odd cars came to the US. I think under 40 came to Canada originally. So it's a legitimately rare car with just an awful lot of charisma. And at current pricing of about $750,000 US, about $1 million Canadian, it seems really, you know, it's hard to call any car that is $1 million, you know, priced, you know, is a bargain. I really do think that there is a lot of room for Carrera GTs to appreciate. So, you know, I think the bump that they've taken recently is just sort of reflective of the fact that a lot of people are realizing what a really special car it is.
Okay, let's take a look at the numbers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sort of a gentle, it's really interesting too, this particular slide, because in general, and I think in some of the subsequent slides we'll see, most of the bump is being taken by the condition 1 and 2 cars, but with 356C cabriolets, you know, it looks like, you know, all 4 of the condition ratings, you know, are, you know, sort of mirroring each other, which is interesting. But I mean, not, it's obviously not a huge amount of appreciation here over the last 3 or 4 years, but, you know, certainly the cars are doing well. And you know, there's not a whole lot of concern here that once the baby boomers and the Gen Xers sort of age out of the hobby, that nobody's going to want them, because 356s have sort of a pan-generational appeal. Everybody wants them. And I think they're going to be perennially desirable. So I think that this sort of reflects that realization.
I think just for the benefit of the group, of the audience here, we should say the condition 1 would be a Concours quality car.
Absolutely.
So rarely driven, almost as if it just came off the factory line, like, you know, just came out of the factory and hasn't been put on the road yet.
Yeah, and even Concours is maybe understating it. One of the things that in my conversations with the publishers of the Haggerty Price Guide that they always stress is that their #1 condition car is really, you know, an almost mythical car that you know, it is a perfect, absolutely Concours ready car that is, you know, ready to compete for the highest national awards or win its class at Pebble Beach. So a 1 in Haggerty's Price Guide is a pretty special car. I mean, the 2s I think are the cars that a lot of us would consider to be condition 1 cars. So that is worth noting. So thanks for pointing that out, Corey.
I guess the condition 4 conversely is a beater, right?
No, actually it's not. I mean, condition 4s, one thing that they don't do is they don't price 5s and 6s. 5 is a beater, 6 is a parts car. 4 is, you know, is a roadworthy car that has, you know, some visible rust, torn seats, maybe smokes a little bit, but, you know, is a usable car. A 3 is what most of us probably own, which is a really, really strong, you know, clean driver quality car with no obvious needs.
Thanks for that. So here's the 911 Speedster slide. It's a nice curve.
Yeah, you know, a little bit of a trough in you know, 2018. I guess, you know, people started to buy the dip, and it really hasn't looked back since. So again, nothing crazy. It's not like a hockey stick graph, but you know, some decent appreciation that probably is, you know, could go on like this for, you know, for quite some time.
So here's the B Roadster again.
Yeah, it's a car that was fairly flat for a good long while, until actually fairly recently, when I think people woke up to the fact that, wow, an A Speedster is now, you know, a really, really great one is now, you know, a $500,000 car. What are the alternatives? And, you know, one of the obvious alternatives besides maybe a 356 convertible D is a B Roadster. You know, the twin grill cars are especially well liked right now, but you know, they're lovely cars. Of all the B body styles, it's probably the prettiest. The low windshield is nice. It's just a really pleasant car to drive. So, you know, again, I think as people became priced out of the speedster market, this is sort of where they looked, and that's where you get the appreciation.
And this slide shows something a little bit interesting that we haven't seen yet is the number 3 and 4 cars are actually declining in value a little bit.
Yeah,
Want to speak to that?
Yeah, and I think it's just a realization of the fact that it costs a lot of money to get a 3 car up to the next condition level, or even a 4 car up to the 3 level. And restoration costs are not going down. In fact, they're continuing to go up. So I think that, you know, this is going to be more common, you know, in the future. The fact that 3 and 4 condition cars might be flat or even going down a little bit, while, you know, 1 and 2 condition cars are rising. It's just really simply a reflection of the fact that restoration costs are really expensive and getting more expensive every year.
And now the Carrera GT.
Yeah, the CGT. Well, you know, I think that everything, the peak of the collector car market, I think, was late 2014, 2015. So almost everything, particularly long hood 911s and some 356s, settled down a little bit in 2016, 2017. And you know, I think there were a lot of people who were just looking at that and deciding to buy the dip, and realizing that a Carrera GT is absolutely a future blue chip collectible. So I think that's really, you know, sort of what happened here is the market did a soft landing in 2016, 2017. And, you know, a lot of people were looking at opportunities. And I think the CGT was a car that stuck out to a lot of people as being, you know, a particularly good value. I think that a lot of people who are in this market now are looking for things that are just a little bit different. The vast majority of Carrera GTs are silver, obviously, but, you know, the few cars in other, you know, odd colors, you know, Faience yellow and some of the other interesting Carrera GT colors. I think there's a Ruby Stone car or 2 out there somewhere. Those cars are doing particularly well, and that's something that just, you know, I don't have to mention to this audience. Just in general, in the Porsche world, color really matters. People really like, you know, some of the less common colors. You know, choose your Porsche, whether it's a 968, a 996, you know, a 911 SC, Carrera, whatever it is. You know, if you have a car that is in a very uncommon color that you know, that people like, one that's, you know, getting a little bit more attention maybe via the paint to sample program now, that can add quite a bit to the value of a car. You know, even more modern cars, if you look at a speed yellow 996 versus a silver 996, you know, there could be, you know, both cars being equal, there could be a you know, a $6,000 or $7,000 difference just by virtue of the color. So, you know, it's a point worth stressing, certainly.
So I pulled this car out and put it on its own because it's, you know, I have some interesting memories of it, which I shared to you earlier, but I'll just share with the group. So back in 1992, I was tree planting in BC, and I was driving around in a 72 Volkswagen Westphalia. And of course it broke down many times. And one of the times it broke down was at a repair shop that had 2 914s that were sort of sitting in, you know, in the parking lot looking like piles of junk. You know, one had collapsed in the center, and they were just rusting hulks. And so I kind of got the impression back then, which stuck with me for a long time, that these were terrible cars. They were basically, you know, puffed up Volkswagens that were not very good. But since then I've learned a lot, and I know that they're fantastic cars. I've driven some and I really enjoy it. And I think you probably have some interesting memories as well of the 914, don't you, Rob?
Yeah, I was a 914 owner for about 3 years, which if, anybody who knows me realizes 3 years is an absolute eternity for me to keep a car. So, the car was so good that I had no qualms about selling it to a close friend. I had spent time in 914s. When I was younger, I knew a number of people who owned them. I'd driven them a fair amount, but I hadn't spent anywhere near as much time in 914s as say 911 SCs. The one thing that that strikes me about the car, even though the Volkswagen joint venture is apparent in a lot of areas, like anything else VW, the stuff may be inexpensive, but it's never cheap. And that really sort of was my feeling about the 914 after I bought it, and after I started to spend a lot of time in it. It might have been, less expensive than a 911T when it came out, but there was nothing really that was blatantly cheap about the car. The door shut nicely, the panel fit was nice. The entire front suspension is 911 derived. The climate control sliders are all straight out of a 911. The gauges are all very familiar to anyone who spent a lot of time in a 911. The steering wheel is obviously a 911 piece. The waffle pattern, door panels and seat leatherette, all very familiar to anybody who's spent time in a Porsche. So, it didn't feel at all alien to me. The 2-liter cars have a decent amount of poke to them, but even the 1.7s and the 1.8s are fun to drive. Obviously, the 914 6s are in a completely different stratosphere in terms of value and everything else. But they're really fun to drive cars. They handle nicely. They will cruise on the highway all day long at 120 kph with with no issues. I drove mine down to Amelia Island a couple of years ago, and it made a steady 80, 85 miles an hour, all day long. It was just absolutely, a lovely car. So I think the realization is, particularly among younger people whom, it looks unique. The mid-engine architecture is appealing. I think the stigma is gone. I think it's been now 50 years on, it's been fully accepted as a Porsche, and a fun and desirable one at that, and values are reflecting that.
I think for me, it was a surprise to see one go over 100,000, but the way you describe it, it's not unreasonable.
I've seen several 4-cylinder 914s go over 100,000. I mean, I remember seeing the one, and it was a 75. It was a rubber bumper car at RM in Monterey about 3 years ago that sold for just a whisker under $100,000 US, so well over $100,000 Canadian. And it was followed up by another car, I think at Gooding, a year later, a very similar car that really did about the same thing. So I think that, we're sort of conditioned to the fact, obviously these were two completely original cars. I think one car had, 11,000 miles on it, another car had 20,000 miles on it. So they were extraordinarily good cars, but still, one sale doesn't make a market, but when you start to see several cars approaching 6 figures, you sort of get conditioned to the fact that, well, the best 4-cylinder 914s are now likely 6-figure cars. So I think that's an amazing state of affairs.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about some of the cars that are losing ground right now. So we'll look on the flip side here.
Right.
Here we go. So let's,
and we
what
should
do you got?
emphasize at the outset that none of these cars are circling the drain. I mean, the loss in value is not gigantic, but I think on the upper left, the 964 Speedster, I think that aesthetics are subjective, and I can remember it wasn't all that long ago when the general consensus around the 964 was that it's just not a very pretty car. The bumpers are bulbous, and it's somewhat aesthetically challenged. Well, that is not the prevailing wisdom right now around the 964. I think the majority of people think that it was a clever update of the G-body car. But I think that as a speedster, it doesn't work quite as well as the G-body speedster, the 997 that we looked at earlier. At least that's, I think, sort of the prevailing wisdom right now. And I think that you know, as tastes change, I think that all that this sort of dip in 964 speedster values represents is probably a buying opportunity for somebody astute. So I think that it's certainly a car that's going to go back up. To the right of it, the 930, the Turbo Targa, sort of the coupe preference that we discussed earlier, I think really manifests itself in the 930 world. You know, people who are shopping for 930s are generally looking for a coupe. So the Targa and the cab, you know, the two cars that are pictured on the right, tend to suffer a little bit as a result of just preference for the closed car with the 930. You know, I spent a fair amount of time growing up. My dad had an 88 930 Cabriolet. And one thing I can tell you is there's obviously a lot of stuff going on underneath the engine compartment lid. And it's kind of nice to listen to it. I mean, you certainly hear with the top down and all the stuff, you know, just behind your right ear, you know, wastegate, you know, turbocharger, you know, all that stuff, all those, you know, the auditory aspect of a turbo is enhanced with a cab. So it's really kind of a fun driving experience that's underrated. But the fact is, you know, all 930s went up quite a bit around 2015, and then they settled down. And the cars that lost the most ground were the, you know, the two body styles that weren't coupes. So that's really sort of all it is right now. And it's probably another case of what goes down will inevitably go back up. But you know, in the general settling down of the 930 market, you know, the Targa and the cab took the biggest hit, along with probably the 1980 through 85 gray market cars that weren't North American cars originally. But that's just sort of, you know, the cyclical nature of the 930 market. The one on the bottom left is the one, quite honestly, that has me scratching my head and saying buying opportunity, which is the 911 SC Cabriolet. You know, it took Porsche almost 20 years to build a fully open 911. And when they did, I think they did a pretty good job of it. You know, I think aesthetically, the car works nicely. I like the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, I think all the SC Cabriolets are manual top cars, which, you know, anybody who's ever dealt with, you know, a 25 or 30-year-old convertible in a power top mechanism would probably welcome the slight inconvenience of a manual top versus having to deal with replacing power top components as they age. They're legitimately scarce cars. I don't know exactly how many they built, but 83 SC Cabriolets are, you know, it's a 1 year only car for the SC, and there aren't that many of them around. So to the extent that values are a little bit depressed right now on them, I would just look at that as a buying opportunity. You know, I think they're delightful cars.
Let's just take a quick look at the numbers here. So we got the Speedster first.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably the most drastic drop of all of them. And I think that, you know, again, when you see something like this, I think that a lot of people just look at it as, you know, an opportunity to buy, you know, a temporary dip. And I think that's probably all you're looking at here.
They're going to shoot back up again eventually, for sure.
Eventually, yeah, like everything else.
So here's the Turbo Targa 930.
Yeah, you know, and just sort of a gradual, you know, letting out of the air from, you know, what got pretty heady around 2015, 2016, when virtually any 930 was seeing just really huge gains. I mean, particularly the early cars, and they've held up a little bit better. You know, the very rare 75s and the 76 Turbo Carreras, you know, maintained a lot of the appreciation they saw in 2013, 14, and 15, but not so much with the Targa. But I mean, to me, you know, it sort of splits the difference in the body styles between a coupe and a cabriolet. You know, I would certainly own a Turbo Targa. I don't think there's anything remotely wrong with the cars, the body style. And again, it just may represent an opportunity to buy a 930 at a more favorable price.
Do you think that those two cars, the turbo and the cabriolet, might get caught up in the 80s and 90s car sort of fad that's going on? I wouldn't call it a fad, but the desire for 80s and 90s cars.
If it happened, it probably would have happened. I think that the cars that are getting caught up in sort of the Radwood effect are the slant nose cars, that are just absolutely quintessentially 80s. I mean, a white slant nose, 930 cab with a white interior. I mean, it's, if anybody can come up with a car that is, it's more quintessentially 80s Miami Vice than that car, I'm all ears. But yeah, I think if you want to show up and win Radwood, it's going to take something, like that rather than sort of a more common turbo cab or Targa.
Okay, well, here's the SC Cabriolet.
Yeah, and I have no explanation for that sort of that triangular shaped bump, between 2019 and 2020. It's just, sort of one of the vagaries of Porsche pricing in the Porsche market. But you can see that every condition level is slowly on the way back up. So, I think that's probably, going to, sort of even out over time. I think that you'll see some gradual appreciation for SC Cabriolets as people start to realize that it's a fairly unique car and they're somewhat rare and really pleasant to own and drive.
Okay. Here's the Cabriolet going down a little bit.
Yeah, and sort of matches the Targa, and really sort of the same comments the Targa apply here. But again, it's a really delightful car to drive the top town on a sunny day and just listen to everything that's going on behind you. I think it's a somewhat underrated car.
I agree. Okay, so that's it for Rob and the state of the market. And I really appreciate you putting the time into doing this for us. So thank you very much. And Rob and I will stick around for questions at the end. And I'll just have a few more things to share with you. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our valuation tools. So one of the things that, we get this information that we're presenting today, some of it comes from Rob actually to our valuation tools. And then of course we have a team at Haggerty that devote their lives to just learning about the market and following the auction sales and that sort of thing. And so all that information that we have, it gets culminated into these tools. Which are available to everyone to use. And the real advantage of these tools is that, if you're trying to sell your car, you can get an idea of the market. If you're trying to insure your car, you can get an idea of the value. And if you're trying to buy a car, you can sort of see what you're in for. And so we have these tools here. What on the left is our Haggerty Insider app. So it's a redesigned version of it's basically an auction tool. It's tracking in real time the auction sales that are happening. It was great when I was at Amelia Island. You could sit, and if you were at one auction and there was something else going on, you could see what was coming up on the run list and see the values getting updated in the app in real time. The only unfortunate thing originally was it was only available for iPhone, and now it's been redesigned and it's available for Android too. So if you go to the App Store, you can download that. I like it because you can search any car that's gone through the auction block, in recent times of when they've been tracking on there, but you can see the values. They're all in US dollars. So it's kind of a nice quick way to see what recent sales have been on a particular model that you're looking at. We also have in the middle of the Haggerty price guides. This is a little pocketbook that we print 4 times a year. And that's something you can ask me for, and I can mail them out to you. So they're updated every quarter. And basically, there's some people like Rob are contributing to this guide with information. We have a few other people who are working on it, and we continually update the prices. And I was able to find a mistake in there. It was just a car that just had been missed. The value was slightly off for a few years. It was a pretty rare model through one of our clients. And so it was kind of neat to see that get updated for the next edition. I sort of felt proud that I was able to find a number that could be changed, because it doesn't happen very often. And then finally, on our website, haggerty.ca, we have our valuation tool that you can use. You can get some basic information. If you're a Haggerty Drivers Club member, you can get more in-depth information, but you can see results for vehicles over the last 3 or 5 years, depending on your level, whether you're just a casual user or a member. And it's all in Canadian dollars. So it's basically the price guide that you see in the middle, but on the website in Canadian dollars. So I encourage you, if you haven't looked at it before, to go in and take a look at it. And then Michael asked me just to give, I'm sure there's probably a lot of Haggerty customers on this webinar, on the Zoom meeting, but for those that aren't, I'll just give you a little quick sort of update of what we're all about and why we're a little bit different than the standard market. So I think the biggest misconception about Haggerty is that we only insure collector cars, and we're known for insuring 25-year and older cars, but actually we insure right up to the 2021 model year. The vehicles that we insure have to be collectible, so they have to be appreciating classics, and we have some particular vehicles that we don't insure that are newer, such as 4-doors and that sort of thing. But we like exotics. We like vehicles that are from the 1980s and 90s. We take 25-year-old pickup trucks and SUVs. And probably what a lot of people don't realize is that we started, Haggerty started with McKeel Haggerty's parents back in the 1980s. And they specifically started by insuring collector wooden boats, classic wooden boats and fiberglass boats. And the whole thing this came about was to try and find coverage for those boats that no one was offering at the time. It wasn't until a few years later that they started insuring collector cars. And that came out of the family's passion for those cars. So there's quite a variety of vehicles that we do insure besides classic cars. And really, I don't think regular insurance is the right place to put your baby or collector car. And so I'll give you a little kind of what the differences are here. So one of the things we do on every policy is we offer guaranteed value. So that's basically whatever we agree to as the value for the vehicle, that is what we're going to pay if the car is totaled. There's no negotiation. So in the standard car market, you can get an agreed value policy for a newer vehicle, or sometimes you pay extra to have that benefit for your older cars. We don't do any of that. We put that guaranteed value on every policy. Another nice thing, especially with this particular nice week of weather, is you don't really have to do winter layup. So we know you're going to put your car in storage, and when you do that, it's fine. But you don't have to call Haggerty and say, I want to take my road coverage off my car and put it in fire and theft for the winter. We've fully covered the cars all year round. And the benefit of that is you're fully protected. So, in the event that perhaps somebody would drive through your garage door and smash into your car, which is a collision, you're covered. When with fire and theft, what I think a lot of people don't realize, and I was sort of guilty of this for years and years, with fire and theft, you're really only covering your car for a fire or a theft. So if it's vandalized or the building collapses on it, you're not covered. We don't require appraisals, which is really nice. So you can save anywhere from $150 to $300 every couple of years. The only time we require them is if we can't verify the value on a vehicle. So there are some vehicles that have an intrinsic value that's not necessarily measured through our valuation tools. And there's some outliers and some odd cars there, but for the most part, we don't require an appraisal, which is fantastic. And then, of course, flexible usage is a key thing. So we want people to enjoy their cars. Used to be when the collector car insurance policies that were available in Ontario before Haggerty came along, it was parade use only and no going to the grocery store and all that. We don't have any of that. So use your car as much as you want, as long as it's for pleasure use. You can go to the store, you can drive it to work occasionally. So there's a lot of flexibility there. You can take your car into the US. You can pretty much use it anytime you want, as long as you're not using it as a daily driver. And of course, the real important part of Haggerty is that we do one thing, we do it really well, and that is we insure collector cars and boats. And we're very enthusiast focused. So our whole team at Haggerty loves cars. They like talking about cars. You're never going to find a better group of individuals to talk about cars with anywhere in any insurance company. I can guarantee that. And we happen to be at a lot of events and supporting clubs like the UCR Club. So I won't keep this on too long, but these are some of the differences between the standard market and what Haggerty does. And a couple of things that stand out is we really are particular about claims handling for your collector car, because we know that it's not the same as taking your Honda Civic in to get a door repaired. It's a whole different animal, especially with parts and with the type of shop you want to choose, that sort of thing. And finally, I'll just mention that we do offer cherish salvage, which is basically an endorsement that you pay a little bit extra for. But in the event that your car is totaled and you want to keep it, normally with a regular insurance company, you'd have to buy the salvage back from the insurance company. With us, you can add the cherish salvage endorsement and you can keep the car for nothing. So why would you want to do that? If you love the car and you want to rebuild it, you can, and we'll insure the rebuilt car. Or if you want to take the parts off of it and use it for your next project, you can. And finally, if you just want to sell the salvage and make some extra money, you can do that too. So that's some of the benefits of Haggerty. And so I did promise a tour of the garage, and we couldn't get in there. Rob wasn't available to get over there to run the presentation from the garage. So I do have a photo. This is just a little sneak peek, and I'd love to show everyone the garage a little more in depth. But the garage is filled with cars. A lot of the cars in the garage are actually cars that were salvage vehicles that Haggerty kept because the customers didn't have the cherish salvage endorsement or didn't buy the cars back. And then our employees restored them. Just on the far left, you can see a reddish orange Camaro. And that was just the nose of it there. And that was an employee restored vehicle, which I've driven. It's pretty cool to drive around. A lot of the cars are sent out on tours and events across North America. We've had some of the cars from this garage. The white Cadillac is one that you can see on the rack on the left. We've had that at Cobble Beach for people to drive. And then we have got one of McKeel's race cars here. And then finally, I just wanted to show you, this is McKeel Haggerty. So he's sort of the brains behind the operation. And this is his 911, 67 911. And what's interesting about this car, and I've got a picture of him as a youth in the bottom right corner. So he picked up this car at age 13 for $500. And the story he tells us is that he basically had to, he picked it up in the winter and it was just completely covered with snow. They'd been snow blowing on top of it. So Dad and McKeel sat there and dug the car out of the snow for an afternoon and then towed it home. And the idea was that he was going to restore this car with his dad. And similarly, his two older sisters did the same thing. They got to pick the car they want and restore it. And so he's had this car since age 13. I don't think it'll ever leave his possession. And we actually had it at the auto show last year in February on display at the Cobble Beach exhibit. We brought it in for that. Andrew County's on the call from Haggerty, brought the car in and arranged that. And it resonates, this story resonates for me because my first collector car I bought when I was 20 years old in 1990, the 64 Beetle that I mentioned earlier. And that's the car I still have today. And it's just like his 911. I mean, if I was smarter, I bought a 911 instead of the Beetle, but I'll tell you that is the most fun vehicle. And it's a car I'll never part with. I enjoy it every day. So that is all I wanted to share with you, and just leave you with one anecdote is to never stop driving. That's sort of the rally cry for Haggerty right now. Whatever that looks like in the future, we're going to be there to support it. And, I really encourage you to ask some questions. We've got Rob and myself here. So if you have insurance questions or you have market questions, we can try and address those now. I'll stop sharing the presentation too, so we can see each other. There we go.
Thank you, Corey. That was fantastic. And thank you, Rob. Interesting information. I have a quick question about the 914. I used to have one as well for 3 or 4 years. I loved it at 73 1.7 liter. I wish I would have got a 914.6, but I couldn't afford it at the time, and I probably can't afford it now either. But what are the prices of the 914.6 right now? Because there were only 3,300 made roughly, right? So.
Right. Well, and with the caveat that you know, my ability to transition from one currency to another is somewhat limited. But you know, I think the really good cars kind of tend to hover in the 100,000 US, 125,000 Canadian range. Um, you know, the cars with needs, you know, I think are still out there, you know, in the probably 65 to $75,000 range. But you know, as everybody knows, the cost of restoring Porsche is you know, is certainly not going down. So generally, it's best to buy the you know, the best car that you can afford, and I think that's particularly true with a 914.6, where you're looking at a car that had limited rust you know, prevention from new, and you know, a 2-liter 911 derived engine that's going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 or so to rebuild. So, but yeah, 914.6s have gone up pretty significantly in the last, you know, 5 to 10 years.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So most people are on mute right now. So if you've got a question, you can unmute yourself and then feel free to speak out.
Yep, this is Stefan. I have a question. What do you think the future holds for the market for the 918 Spider? And also, what about the recent GT cars? I see a lot of them get scooped up. There's 1,000 kilometers on them. They're back on the market. What is your impression of those? Like, especially the GT2 RS. It seems like they're like double the price now.
Yeah, you know, they all sort of have. I mean, the 911R was a really good recent example of that in 2016. I think the original MSRP in the US was about $185,000, so it was probably 225 or so in Canada, something like that. And you know, the people who wanted to be the first were paying up to $500,000 US for the car. They settled down considerably, but never anywhere near their original MSRP. But I think with some of the GT cars, Porsche kind of got away from their philosophy, which had been, we'll produce exactly one less than the market will bear. And the production numbers went up. So, you know, I don't know that I'm a huge fan of buying a car and sort of pickling it, putting it away with no miles. I mean, I think that's rarely a particularly winning strategy. I think, you know, with the time value of money and everything else and inflation that winds up getting figured in, it's rarely a you know, a particularly good place. So you know, my advice is to buy the car if you truly want it and enjoy it, and not worry so much about the market. You know, it's hard to make a lot of money speculating on late model cars. It's just sort of always been that way.
And the 918 Spider, there was 918 of them produced?
Yeah, and they seem like at every auction cycle pre-COVID, there were exactly 4 of them. All the catalog sales had at least one. Gooding had one, Bonhams had one, RM had one, and there was one more floating around someplace else. It seemed like invariably 2 of the 4 sold, and it was always for about $1.4 million US. And I think that's about where they are right now. That said, they are, you know, obviously spectacular cars that are very significant in terms of the engineering and Porsche's approach to, you know, sort of building the ultimate supercar at that particular point in time. They've got no place to go but up. I mean, they are not. I can say this, I think, with a reasonable degree of certainty that you know, a car that's $1.4 million US right now is never going to be significantly cheaper, and more likely it's going to be significantly more expensive in the future. So, you know, if there were a car that you could single out as an absolute blue chip car, you know, built in the last you know, 5 years, that's certainly one of them. Anything else?
Is there some sort of a formula for mileage, like when you take mileage into account? Because I've seen some cars recently with 275,000 kilometers on it, and they're still asking like a lot of money. So,
you know, it's the bring a trailer effect in some ways. I think that people realize with Porsches that In some cases, you are far better off with a 200,000 mile 911 SC than you would be with a 50,000 mile car that's been sitting and hasn't had up-to-date maintenance. You know, a 200,000 mile car that's been absolutely you know, maintained with an open checkbook. I'd rather have that car than, you know, waking up a 50,000 mile car that's been sitting for 5 or 6 years. So I think that service records are enormous in terms of what you see in terms of resale and value. And if you can document, you know, everything that's been done to the car. You know, for example, you know, like a 996 turbo, really good example of a car that can be fairly maintenance intensive, particularly if things have been on the deferred maintenance plan for a while. I would rather own a 100,000 kilometer car that's had, you know, everything done to it. That's had coolant pipes done, that's had the overflow tank replaced, and you know, it's just been looked after, than say a 50,000 kilometer car that you know, has been laid up for a period of time and you know, doesn't have you know, comprehensive records. So you know, I think that plays a big part in it. Just the realization that Porsches are well-built cars. You know, they're built to last. That 250 or 300,000 miles on an SC or a 3.2 Carrera is nothing near unheard of. And you're buying the previous owner and that previous owner's approach to maintenance.
Rob, you brought up bring a trailer. I think I've noticed a bit of a deficit in some cars, you know, from Canada selling through bring a trailer into the
Right.
US. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I think, and we had this conversation this morning. I think that if you own it, you know, if you're a Canadian seller and you're looking to tap into a larger market, potentially selling to a US seller, you will do well if you own something that, obviously we have a 25-year rule here, you have a 15-year rule. If you're selling something that is newly become legal in the US and it's already in the right continent, it's in North America, you'll do really well. If you're selling something that is easily repeatable south of the border, I think the average US buyer, right or wrong, will view the import process is an added hassle. And if he doesn't have to buy that Canadian car, he or she won't. Even though I think, you know, most of us who have dealt with it realize it's not that huge of a deal. In the US, if you're buying a car in Canada that has spent time in the US previously, you don't even pay duty. And even when you do pay duty to import a car, it's 2.5%. I mean, so in terms of the tax scheme here, you know, obviously we don't have a GST or a PST equivalent, and you know, we're under taxed, and it's really not that big of a deal to bring a car across the border. But I think it's just the perception of the average buyer in the US that it's a bigger hassle than it really is, that depresses prices of Canadian cars on BAT. But that said, you know, if you own something that's newly legal, you know, an Audi RS2 or something, you know, something like that, and it's already in Canada, that's a plus. You'll do very well with a car like that, I think.
You think there's room to knock bring a trailer off its plateau and add other players in the market?
A lot of people are trying, but I mean, you know, they had sort of the first to market advantage, and they built, you know, I think a really good user base. You know, I continue to be shocked at some of the prices that people realize for cars on Bring a Trailer. But you know, there's cars and bids, there's PCAR market, there, you know, all of the live auction companies have launched online platforms out of necessity, obviously. But BAT has got a big advantage, and now they've got a lot of money from Hearst behind them in terms of being able to upgrade the site, market more. So they're going to be tough to knock off, I think.
What's the status of the Mart for PCA and Panorama, and your recent how you reconfigured it? Have you had feedback?
A lot of feedback, and it's been, I will be honest, it's been somewhat mixed. I mean, one of the things that we did before making the change is we did a fair amount of research. We talked to a lot of people and wanted to get a sense of, what do you use the Mart in print for? And the two answers that we got predominantly were, well, I use it because I'm shopping for a car. That's fairly obvious. And the other was, you know, I've owned my car for a long time and I just want to get some idea of what it's worth. And I do that by looking at what other people are asking for similar cars. So we looked at it and we realized, well, it's not really ideal for either purpose because the production cycle of the magazine, most of the ads are at least 2 to 3 weeks old by the time they show up in print. So a good number of those cars are already sold, which, if I were a serious buyer, would be fairly frustrating for me to go through the print version of the Mart, pick up the phone, call in a car and find out that 50% of the cars are sold. And most conspicuously, the ones that go first are the ones that are either the best cars, the ones that are priced the most attractively. So there's that. And there's also using it as a measure of value isn't particularly good because you're looking at asking prices. And, as all of us know, there's a fair amount of difference in a lot of cases between a price realized and a transaction and an original asking price. So we thought we could sort of do something that we best of both worlds, which is that expanded Mart dashboard, which uses some of the data that Haggerty has, bring a trailer data, auction data, whatever sort of transactional data you find compelling, we put it in there in sort of an easy to use dashboard that looks like something you might get from a brokerage firm or something like that. But one of the things that we didn't hear when we were doing the research was that a sizable minority of people enjoy just looking at the ads for entertainment purposes, reading the ads and reading the descriptions, and people found that entertaining. It was a little bit of a surprise to me because I'm a visually driven person, and the lack of photographs with the print ads was always something that inhibited me from using the print Mart very much when it's so easy to go online, especially with the upgraded online Mart with more pictures and bigger descriptions. If I were seriously looking for a car, that would sort of be my first place to go. That said, we're going to continue to listen to what people have to say, and if it makes sense to add some of the descriptors back into the print version of the Mart, well, then we absolutely will look at doing that. So, yeah, that's sort of a long answer of
that's the old autos effect. I don't know if you've heard of Old Autos magazine we have here in Ontario, but it's littered with classified ads, almost no pictures, and people love it. There's a huge audience for that, and especially an older demographic that doesn't want to go online and look at.
So we're continuing to listen. One of the things though that we did do, even with the sort of the truncated ads, is we made it a little bit more in creating the ad a little bit more dependent on drop down boxes. One of the things that I found really frustrating about some of the print ads before was not mentioning, hey, is this a Tiptronic, or is this a manual? Is this a PDK, or is it a 6-speed? Really pertinent information like that. Body style sometimes would be left out of the ad when people didn't have to select that from a drop-down box. So I think we've at least rectified that. But yeah, we're going to continue to listen to readers and adjust if necessary. But the interesting thing is, most people seem to like that market dashboard with all the data. They sort of wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted to have the full ads, and that new sort of market data. So, like I said, we're listening and we'll make adjustments as necessary.
So what section do you go to first? Rob Sass, what section, what's your next portion?
Oh, that's a really good question. Honestly, sort of, picking up on some of the conversation we had earlier about open cars being undervalued, I'm kind of liking 944 S2 Cabriolets right now. I think they're really good looking. 944 S2s are great cars to drive. And, I think that's one car where, one convertible where it looks good top up or top down. I mean, if they called it the 944 Speedster, we'd be looking at values that are probably double, what they are right now, but they're rare, they're special. They were kind of coach built. I mean, they were finished by ASC and Heilbronn, Germany. They're really neat cars, and they're not common at all. And well under $20,000 Canadian right now. I know of two very nice cars for sale with an asking price of one's 12.5 and one's 14 US. So that's still well under 20 Canadian. So I think great value in a really fun car. So that's kind of where my head is right now, is possibly a 944 S2 cab.
And you get a big trunk.
You get a big trunk. Yeah, absolutely. You get a big trunk, and you've got a tremendously torquey, massive 4-cylinder engine, the likes of which we're never going to see again.
Yeah, huge piston.
Yeah. So I like those 968 Cabriolet, sort of the same thing, a little bit more expensive. But for whatever reason, I kind of like the look of the 944 S2 cab. So yeah, that's sort of where I am right now.
Yeah, it's a cool car.
Yeah.
I just had 2 comments there, Rob. You just put the price up for yourself.
I did. I probably did. Yeah.
And back to the entertainment value, quote unquote, of the ads. I have and not because I'm the editor of our club magazine, but because that's what I do. I have giant piles of magazines, and it's occasionally fun to pull out, Road and Track from the 70s or something.
70s. Yeah.
And go, I should never have bought that crappy car. I should have sucked it up and bought, I don't know,
Yeah, well,
Mercedes SL Gullwing that wasn't running for some ridiculous sum.
Yeah.
So there is entertainment value in the ads.
Yeah, there absolutely is, but and to your point, sometimes it comes, a little ways down the road. But yeah, I always, wow, that 27 RS was $15,000. That would have been a better place to put some money than in a mutual fund. Or maybe I should have just hung on to my 72 911S.
I have a question for Corey. Corey, I've got a few cars insured with Haggerty, but is there any issues about mileage? Because I don't think you ever ask on the renewal every year about mileage. And I know you said you can drive it. You don't want to really drive it to work, but and then Rob was saying, a Porsche with 200,000 or 300,000 miles isn't a bad thing either. But do you track mileage or no?
So we ask how much mileage you're going to use on your car in a year, and we have a kind of a restriction that says you shouldn't be putting more than 5,000 kilometers on your car per year. But we actually don't ask for an odometer reading either when we sign you up or every year on renewal. So we're not really tracking it. We know that from the research that we've done, the average number of kilometers that a Haggerty customer drives per year is 900 kilometers. So wow. Some people drive a lot more. I drive a lot more than that. And some people drive a lot less. And so the average is 900. It doesn't mean that, everyone here is going to drive 900, but we do want you to enjoy your cars. On a supercar, with a higher horsepower and a higher price, we say 7,000 kilometers a year. And believe me, there's not a ton of those that are getting that kind of mileage. You have to be driving that quite often in the summer in Canada, a supercar to get 7,000 kilometers. But right. Yeah, and the other thing is you can take the car into the US, like we said. So if if you're taking it down for an event, a driving tour, that sort of thing, it's totally fine. And so yeah, we're not closely tracking it. That's not to say that we won't ever do that, but right now we're not. I don't think there's any plans to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, we're going to do a Q&A in a few minutes, or not a Q&A, a trivia contest. And if you've been paying attention to the presentation, then you should be able to win yourself a prize. We're going to have 12 questions. But before I get to that, do we have any new members this evening? New club members?
Yes, I think I saw at least 4 new members. Maybe when I call your name, if you can just say hi. George Kara. Hi, George.
Kara Apostolakis. Hi.
Hi, George.
Hi.
Welcome to the club.
Thank you. Thank you.
When did you join?
I guess it must have been about a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, great.
So fairly recently. Yep.
Excellent.
George was featured on our social media a couple days ago with his car.
Excellent. Welcome to the
And-
club. We'll be sending you a pin.
Perfect, thank you.
Who else do we have, Kathleen?
Monica Leon. Monica,
Hello, how are you?
hi.
Hi, Monica.
Hi,
Welcome to UCR.
thank you.
When did you join?
The end of September.
Oh, great. Excellent.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Well,
And
obviously we're gonna try to have more events next year if we can. So obviously look at our calendar and we'd love to meet you at one of the events.
Same,
And
thank you.
and we'll mail the Porsche pin to you.
Yeah.
And
Thank
I
you.
also got John Scott. John, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Hi, John.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to.
Proud owner of a 2017 C2. I've had it a year now, and I put 15,000 kilometers on it this year, so I've been getting around.
Nice. Congrats. Thank you for joining UCR.
Thanks.
Sorry to interrupt you, Michael. Rob has got to go to jump off the call. So just wanted
Okay.
to once again say thanks for joining us, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you.
for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thanks
Thanks.
so much, Rob.
Appreciate
Thank you, Rob. Nice to see
I'm
you.
an 8-year-old. I've got to put him to bed.
it. Thank you. We
We'll
really,
look for you in the next magazine.
yes.
Thanks for having me. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
for
Take
the support.
care.
Good night.
Good night.
And I also got, I think David Trichia. David, are you still here? No, okay.
No.
No, and then I think, yeah, I think he sent a message earlier. I think that's David. And then I think I got, is it Jeff Ware?
Yeah, that's me. How's
Hi,
it going?
Jeff.
Hey, how are
Hi, Jeff. Welcome to UCR.
you? I can't remember how long ago I joined, maybe a few weeks ago.
Oh,
give or
good.
take.
How did you find out about UCR?
Oh, I've known about it for a long time, but I
Okay.
just finally pulled the trigger and bought it's a Boxster. It's like a cheap bottle of red wine, 986 Boxster. I picked it up maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
Oh, nice
and
car.
joined soon after. So
Good.
yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Finally pulled the trigger. Here we are.
Look forward
Welcome.
look forward to meeting you in real life sometime.
For sure.
Thank
Yeah,
Okay.
and we'll mail the Porsche pin to you.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
then I think I've got, is it Barbara Griffiths or Phil? Phil Griffiths?
Hey, that's me.
Hi.
Hi, I'm not new though. I've been a member for many years. I've had a 951, 996, 997.
Okay,
Nice.
great. Well,
Great.
thanks
Well,
for
thank
being
you.
here. Thanks for being in the club and thanks for joining this evening.
Thanks.
Have we missed any other new members who are on here? Nope.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
So we'll be sending out a pin to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for coming tonight and thanks for being part of UCR. Okay, so we're going to get to the trivia questions now. These were sent to me by Corey. Corey's put these together based on the presentation. So, so the first person to answer the question in the chat,
the chat.
Chris will
I don't
monitor
know.
that.
Do you know how to chat, honey? No, we never can get those.
Okay. So the first one to write it in the chat will receive a prize. So first question. By how much are year-to-date auction sales down in 2020? Percentage or dollar value will be acceptable.
I think Larry got it first.
Not yet. I don't see it yet.
You don't think Larry got it?
Hold on.
25%, he said.
Yeah, who got it? Larry. Oh,
Larry.
sorry. Way up there.
Larry.
Okay. Okay, Larry, yes, congratulations. 25% or 90 million US dollars. Okay, is somebody marking down the winner?
Yep.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Number two, what is the 2020 sell-through rate compared to 2017 to 2019? In a percentage, what is the sell-through rate?
Doug got it. 74%.
Yep. Who got it?
Doug Trott.
Okay, congratulations. So Chris, on this next one, E isn't applicable anymore, okay? So we're just going
Okay.
E to D in terms of the answers.
Got it.
Okay, so the third question, name 3 Porsches that are gaining value. Name 3 Porsches that are gaining value.
So you have to name 3, right? Wayman's got 2 so far.
Name 3 Porsches that are gaining value based on the presentation that you saw earlier.
Yeah, Wayman's got it.
What about Phil there? Phil had 3 written in one line there.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, that's 3 in one line. So we get 356B and 356C. Yeah, and 997.2.
Those are all correct?
Yeah, we didn't have a 997.2. We
No,
had
we don't have a 997.
yeah, I don't think a 997.2 is gaining in value right now.
Okay, so does it go to Wayman?
Yeah.
Okay, congratulations, Wayman.
Congrats. Yeah, so 997.2. So it was a 2011 911 Speedster, which is a 997, but we were looking for Speedster.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Number 4, name 3 Porsches that are losing value. There's 4 answers, so name 3 of them. 3 Porsches are losing value.
Ideally in the same point. Here we go. 964 Speedster. Yeah. 930 Cab. Yeah. And 930 Targa. Yeah.
Okay, who got it?
That was Jeff W.
Jeff Ware, the
Jeff
new
Ware.
member.
Excellent, great. Thank you, Jeff. Congratulations.
Paying attention already.
Okay, number 5, how much did the 914 Targa gain in value this year?
Man, these are really specific questions.
Try to make them a little more challenging. Around how much? How about that?
Yeah, around how much?
Approximately how much percentage-wise
Percentage-wise, yeah.
did the 914 Targa gain in value this year? Ballpark. No. No.
Was it more than 2% and less than 5%?
It's still going up. It's much lower.
Yeah.
George is close enough.
Yeah.
3%. It was actually 3.3, but
3.3.
Is that George K?
This is Ray rules.
George, you want to speak up?
George K, the new member?
Yes, that's me. Sorry. I was trying to find the mute button.
Congratulations,
Gotcha.
George. Congratulations.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Next question. How much did the value of the 1984 911 Cabriolet drop this year?
Try and
So
get
how
it
much in
close.
value did the 84 911 Cabriolet drop this year? These are tough questions, Corey. You had to really pay attention.
Yeah. Wasn't 20. Not 16.
You guys are both close.
Yeah. Wasn't 7. Not 14. Just keep typing numbers in until you get it.
84 Cabriolet, 911 Cabriolet. How much did it drop by?
So it's between 16 and 20, just to give you a hint.
Yeah. It's only a few numbers between those.
There we go. Monica, that's close enough.
Yeah, that's close enough.
There you
It
go.
was 18.9, but
Congratulations, Monica. That's great. Okay, number 7. Name the Haggerty mobile app for searching auction results and vehicle values. What's it called? It was on one of the last slides that Corey presented. Name the Haggerty mobile app for searching auction results.
Nope, not Haggerty Value. There it is. Robert. Oh, Roberto. Where's that Robert Zero?
Yeah, congratulations.
What's Roberto's last name?
Probably Robert. Robert Bauman.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Congrats. Okay. Number 8. Does Haggerty insure 2020 911s? Yes or no? Oh,
Mark got it. 50-50 chance.
okay, Mark got it. Congrats, Mark.
Mark Lowry.
Yeah, Mark Lowry. Number 9. Does Haggerty insure 80s and 90s cars? Oh, Phil, quick.
Phil, quick on the draw. Phil Griffiths.
Congratulations, Phil. Those are 50-50. They're using the other one. Number 10. Do you need to get an appraisal for Haggerty Insurance? Oh, that was quick.
I think that was Larry.
Larry. No, Doug.
I mean, maybe Doug Trott, maybe.
Yeah, no, I said the answer no before you even finished the question.
Yeah.
So that's where it was gonna
Okay,
go.
Doug. Congrats.
The people with Haggerty Insurance have a leg up on that question.
Yeah, Doug Trott, congratulations. That's great.
Yeah.
Number 11, with Haggerty, do you need to put your car in fire and theft for the winter?
Let's give that one to Homer.
You can't win more than once. You can only win once tonight. So.
Let's go with Omer. Omer, what's your last name? There you go.
Got it.
Aziz.
Congrats, Homer. Okay, last question, number 12. What does Haggerty want you to do? What's their slogan? What does Haggerty want you to do?
Close.
And don't answer buy insurance.
Yeah.
You could do that, but that's not what we're looking for here.
Close, but no cigar.
What does Haggerty want you to do? What's the slogan?
Stephanie's so close. There we go. Mark's got it. Oh, he's already won. Who's fastest at copying and pasting Mark's answer? Mike Bryan.
Congratulations, Mike. Never stop driving. Excellent.
Good job, everyone. Thank you.
Good job. So we will get those prizes out to you and new member pins to the new members. I really want to thank Corey and Rob. Corey, you're a great supporter of UCR with Haggerty. You come out to our events every year, so we really appreciate you doing this evening. When I asked Corey, I didn't even finish asking him. He said yes right away. So we love your enthusiasm in our club, and we're proud to have you as a member and being here with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to all of you, thank you very much. And to Mike Bryan, who's on the screen, Mike, our past president. Mike was Zone 1 rep for 2 years. He's now ending his term at the end of November, Mike, I believe so.
End of December. Give me one more month.
Oh, December. Okay. So thank you for all your hard work and supporting UCR in Zone 1. And we really appreciate all your efforts. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. We look forward to our next virtual social in December with FAF Porsche. So we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you. Good night.
Well done. Great meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Good night.